A massive warship eternal vigil drifted through the void at the edge of known space. Its captain, a four-armed being named Korvax, studied the star charts with growing unease. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council had marked these regions as dead zones, empty space where no life could exist. "Captain, we're detecting energy signatures," the navigation officer announced, her blue skin pulsing with confusion. "But that's impossible. Nothing exists beyond the rim." Korvax moved to the viewing screen. The readings showed something that shouldn't exist: organized patterns of light where only darkness should reign. "Increase magnification," he ordered. What appeared on screen defied everything they knew. Cities floated in space, each one the size of moons, connected by streams of golden energy. Ships moved between them, not hundreds, but millions. And at the center of it all, a star that hadn't been there before, burning with an unusual white-blue flame. "Sir, we're being hailed," the communications officer said, his voice shaking. On the screen appeared a being that looked deceptively simple: 2 arms, 2 legs, no scales or extra limbs. It wore a uniform of deep black with silver trim. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled before finding the right words. "Galactic vessel, you are approaching human space. State your purpose." Korvax felt his heart skip. Humans? The Council's database mentioned them only as a primitive species from a dying world, lost to history millennia ago. "This is Captain Korvax of the Galactic Council ship Eternal Vigil. We ... We believed this region was uninhabited." The human's expression didn't change. "You believed what we wanted you to believe. Why are you here, Captain?" "The galaxy faces extinction," Korvax replied, deciding honesty was best. "An ancient evil has awakened. The Devourers have returned from dark space. They consume entire star systems. The Council sent us to search for any possible allies or resources in the Rim territories." For the first time, the human showed emotion, a slight smile. "The Devourers. Yes, we know of them. They tried to enter our space 17 cycles ago." "Tried?" Korvax couldn't hide his shock. 3 Council fleets had been destroyed in mere days when the Devourers first appeared. "Captain Korvax, I am Admiral James Blake of the Terran Rim Federation. You and your crew are about to witness something your Council declared impossible. We've been preparing for this moment for 3,000 years, ever since your ancestors decided the Rim was worthless and left us to die." The star at the center of the human construction began to pulse. Energy ribbons spread outward, and space itself seemed to bend. Korvax's instruments went wild, detecting power levels that exceeded anything in Council records. "What are you doing?" He gasped. "What we've always done," Blake replied. "Surviving, adapting, overcoming. Your Council abandoned us when Earth was dying. You classified us as non-viable and forgot we existed. But we remembered. We took to the Rim, to the places you deemed worthless, and we built something new." The human cities began to move, aligning in a pattern that looked almost like a weapon. No, it was a weapon. The entire civilization was a weapon. "The Devourers are coming," Blake continued. "Our long-range sensors detected them 3 days ago. They'll reach Council space in 72 hours. You have a choice, Captain. Return to your Council and tell them the Rim is still empty, or stay and witness what humanity has become." Korvax made his decision instantly. "We'll stay." Blake nodded. "Ben, move your ship to these coordinates. You're about to see why the Devourers turned back 17 cycles ago. You're about to see what happens when humanity stops hiding." The space around them erupted in light as thousands more human ships emerged from hidden positions. Each one hummed with that impossible energy. "Welcome to the real galactic Rim, Captain," Blake said. "Where humanity learned that sometimes. The best defense isn't a shield. It's becoming something your enemies never imagined possible." Asterisk Admiral Blake's image flickered off the screen, replaced by a tactical display that made Captain Korvax's forearms tremble. The human fleet wasn't just large. It was organized in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. Ships moved in perfect synchronization, creating geometric patterns that pulsed with energy. "Captain, I'm reading something impossible," his science officer Velka whispered. Her violet eyes were wide with disbelief. "These humans, they're not just using their ships. They're channeling stellar energy directly through their bodies." Before Korvax could respond, space around them shimmered. 3 humans appeared on his bridge, not through the doors, but materializing from nothingness. They wore suits that seemed to absorb light, and their eyes glowed with a soft blue radiance. "Don't be alarmed," the lead figure said, removing her helmet to reveal a scarred face and gray hair. "I'm Commander Lisa Park, Void Walker Division. Admiral Blake asked us to share our story while the fleet prepares." Korvax found his voice. "You? You teleported through space? Through our shields?" Park smiled grimly. "We learned to walk between spaces, Captain. When you have no choice but to adapt or die, evolution finds a way." She gestured, and a holographic projection filled the bridge. "Let me show you what really happened 3,000 years ago." The image showed Earth dying, choking on its own poison. Cities burned while the skies turned black. Korvax recognized the scene from Council archives, but what came next was different from the official records. "The Council came," Park continued. "They evaluated us, marked us as a failed species. Too violent, they said. Too primitive. Not worth saving. They took a few hundred humans as curiosities for their museums and left the rest 8 billion souls to die." The projection shifted. Ships, crude and desperate, launching from Earth's surface. But we didn't accept death. We built colony ships from scrap metal and hope. 1 in 10 made it to the rim. 1 in 10 of those survived the first year. That would mean ... double quotes. Velka calculated quickly. Only 8 million survivors. 6 million, actually, Park corrected. But those 6 million were the strongest, the smartest, the most stubborn humans who ever lived. And in the darkness of the rim, we found something the Council never bothered to look for. The image changed again, showing a strange crystalline structure floating in the void. It pulsed with dark energy, tendrils of power reaching out like living things. "The ancients left more than ruins," Park explained. "They left seeds of power, waiting for a species desperate enough to use them. The energy killed most who touched it. But those who survived ... changed." She held up her hand, and Korvax watched in awe as it began to phase in and out of reality. "We learned to bend space, to touch the void between stars. Our children were born different, stronger, able to survive in vacuum for minutes than hours. By the 1,000th generation, we didn't just live in space. We became part of it." An alarm suddenly rang through the ship. Velka's fingers flew over her console. "Captain, Devourer Scouts." 7 vessels, approaching fast. Park's expression hardened. "Perfect timing. You wanted to see what we've become? Watch this." She and her companions didn't move toward the airlock. Instead, they simply walked through the hall, their bodies shifting into something between matter and energy. Korvax rushed to the view screen and saw them floating in space. No ships, no shuttles, just humans in those strange suits. Moving through vacuum like fish through water. The Devourer Scouts were nightmarish things, organic ships that looked like massive squids made of darkness and teeth. They had consumed 3 council worlds without slowing. Now they rushed toward the lone humans floating in space. Park raised her hand. Space around her rippled, and suddenly she was holding a spear of pure starlight, pulled from nowhere. She threw it, and it crossed 10,000 kilometers in an instant, piercing the lead Devourer ship. The creature screamed, a psychic wail that echoed through subspace, and then crumbled to dust. The other 6 scouts tried to flee. The Void Walkers didn't let them. They moved through space like vengeful spirits, each strike bending reality itself. In 30 seconds, it was over. Impossible, Korvax breathed. Park's voice came through the communication system. Captain, that was 3 of us against scouts. We have 50,000 Void Walkers, and the main fleet hasn't even powered weapons yet. The Devourers are about to learn why the rim wasn't empty. It was preparing. The main Devourer fleet emerged from dark space like a cancer spreading across the stars. 10,000 bioships, each one a living nightmare that had consumed entire civilizations. They moved with horrifying purpose toward Council space, leaving trails of corrupted spacetime in their wake. Captain Korvax stood on the observation deck of the human Command Station New Terra, a structure that defied comprehension. It wasn't built, it was grown, metal and energy woven together in patterns that hurt to perceive directly. Admiral Blake stood beside him, watching the approaching horror with calm eyes. Your council is evacuating the border worlds, Blake noted, reading from a datapad. They've already written off 17 systems as lost. Can you blame them? Korvax replied. The Devourers consumed the hegemony in 3 days. They were more advanced than us. Blake smiled. The hegemony made the same mistake you all did. They fought with conventional weapons, with shields and plasma. You can't kill hunger with fire. You need to starve it. The human fleet began to move, not toward the Devourers, but around them, creating a vast sphere encompassing the entire enemy force. Ships linked together with beams of dark energy, forming a net of impossible light. What are you doing? Korvax asked, showing the galaxy why the Devourers turned back 17 cycles ago, Blake replied. He pressed his hand against the console, and his eyes blazed with that strange blue light. All units, initiate Protocol 7. Let's remind these parasites why the void belongs to humanity. What happened next broke every law of physics the Council had documented. The human ships didn't fire weapons, they became weapons. Each vessel extended tendrils of gravitational force, reaching out and grasping the fabric of space itself. Then they pulled, space twisted. Stars in the distance stretched into lines of light. The Devourer fleet, for the first time in their recorded history, stopped advancing. They couldn't move forward. The humans were folding space around them, creating a pocket universe with the Devourers trapped inside. This is impossible, Korvax gasped. The energy required would need 1,000 stars. 1,700 stars, actually, Blake corrected, which is why we've been building stellar converters for 3 millennia. Every dead star in the rim now feeds our grid. The Devourer fleet reacted violently, bioships launching clouds of consumption spores that could dissolve matter at the molecular level. But the spores hit the warped space and simply vanished. They were being shunted into null dimensions, spaces between reality where nothing could exist. Then the humans struck back. From the command station, a young human officer named David Chun stepped forward. He couldn't have been more than 20 standard years, but his eyes held the weight of eternity. Admiral, requesting permission to demonstrate Project Starfall. Blake nodded. Show them what one human can do. David placed both hands on a spherical interface. His body began to glow, brighter and brighter until Korvax had to shield his eyes. When he could see again, David was gone. No, not gone. He had become something else. A figure of pure energy stood in his place. Connected to the station by streams of light out in space, a new star was born, not over time, not through natural processes, but instantly. A star appeared in the center of the Devourer fleet, its gravity well pulling the bioships toward inevitable destruction. But this wasn't just any star, it burned with conscious purpose, reaching out with solar flares that targeted specific ships with surgical precision. The devourers tried to consume it, to feed on its energy. But how do you eat something that burns with human will? The star pulsed, and each pulse destroyed 100 enemy ships. The psychic screaming of the devourers filled subspace, a sound of pure terror. "They're afraid," Velka whispered from her position at the council observation post. "The devourers are actually afraid." Blake's expression remained cold. "They should be. They're not facing a civilization anymore. They're facing a species that learned to weaponize existence itself. Every human in the Rim can do what David is doing. We have 17 million volunteers ready to become stars if needed." The Devourer fleet began to retreat, but the spatial fold held them fast. They were trapped between the human fleet and a star controlled by human thought. "Sir," a communication officer called out, "the Devourer Queen is requesting parley." Blake laughed a sound without humor. Now they want to talk. After consuming 1,000 civilizations, now they want mercy. He turned to Korvax. "Tell your council to watch carefully. They're about to see what mercy looks like when humanity holds the blade." Asterisk the Devourer. Queen's image filled the void between fleets, a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes that sparked madness in those who stared too long. But the humans didn't look away. They stared back with eyes that had seen the death of their world and survived. "You are unnatural." The Queen's psychic voice rippled through space, making lesser beings clutch their heads in pain. "We have consumed galaxies, devoured gods. What are you?" Admiral Blake floated in space, protected only by a thin energy field that shifted around him like living armor. Behind him, David still burned as a living star, holding back the urge to incinerate the entire Devourer fleet. "We're what you created," Blake answered. "Every species you consumed, every world you destroyed, they died quickly. But humans? We died slowly, over centuries. And in that dying, we learned something you never will." The Queen's form pulsed with confusion. What could death teach that matters? How to make death afraid of us? Blake raised his hand, and every human ship responded. But they didn't charge weapons. Instead, they began broadcasting not weapons fire, but memories. The screens throughout Council space lit up with images. Earth's final days. Children starving while Council ships departed. Families separated. Entire cities choosing to die together rather than apart. "Your council," Blake addressed Korvax directly, though his words reached every council world, "decided we weren't worth saving. Too violent, you said. Too primitive. You took our artifacts for museums and left our children to burn." The projections shifted, showing the desperate exodus to the Rim. Ships held together with prayer and determination. Colonies failing. Parents giving their last food to children. Generation after generation adapting, changing, becoming something new. But we didn't die. We evolved. Every generation born in the void grew stronger. By the 100th generation, our children could see cosmic radiation as color. By the 500th, they could feel gravity like a heartbeat. By the 1000th, space itself recognized us as its own. A new figure materialized beside Blake, a child, no more than 10 years old, floating in vacuum without any protection at all. Her skin sparkled with stellar energy, and her eyes held miniature galaxies. "This is Anna," Blake said, "born 3 days ago. She's never breathed air, never felt gravity. She was conceived in a solar storm and born in the void between stars. She is what humanity has become not through technology, but through will." Anna raised her tiny hand toward the Devourer fleet. Space cracked. Not metaphorically, actual fractures appeared in reality, spreading like broken glass toward the bioships. "Stop." The Queen screamed. We yield. We yield. Yield? Blake's voice turned cold. Did the Zorax Confederation yield before you consumed them? Did the machine gods of Sector 9 beg before you destroyed their reality engines? He turned to the Council observers. Did Earth get to yield when you abandoned us? The cracks in space reached the first Devourer ships. They didn't explode, they simply ceased, erased from existence as if they never were. Anna giggled, a sound that somehow echoed through vacuum. Please, the Queen begged, something ancient and proud reduced to terror. We will leave. Never return. Give us exile, not extinction. Blake looked at Anna, then at David still burning as a star, then at the thousands of void walkers floating in space like angels of death. Finally, he looked at Korvax. Captain, you came seeking allies. But tell me, if we save your council now, what happens next? Do we become your weapons? Your guardians? Do our children die for worlds that wouldn't save their grandparents? Korvax felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Through his communication implant, he could hear the council arguing, debating, some calling for alliance, others for destroying the humans after they dealt with the Devourers. No, Korvax said, surprising himself. No more abandonment. If humanity saves us, the Council yields authority over the Rim. Full autonomy. Full recognition. And he hesitated, then continued. Formal apology for the crime of leaving Earth to die. The Council erupted in outrage through the cum channels, but Korvax stood firm. We created this. Our cowardice, our prejudice. We judged them unworthy, and they became something beyond our comprehension. We owe them more than apology. We owe them everything. Blake studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. Anna, that's enough. The child lowered her hand, and the cracks in space began to heal. The Devourer Queen shuddered with relief. You have 1 hour to leave this galaxy, Blake told the Queen. Return, and we won't stop at your fleet. We'll follow you back to wherever you spawn and burn out every trace of your existence from reality. The Queen didn't argue. The Devourer fleet, what remained of it, fled toward dark space faster than they'd arrived. Asterisk. 6 months had passed since the Devourers fled. The council chambers on Prima Station had never been so full, with representatives from every member species, gathered to witness something unprecedented, the formal recognition of the Terran Rim Federation as an autonomous galactic power. Captain Korvax stood in the witness position, his testimony having swayed even the most stubborn council members. Beside him, Admiral Blake waited in simple black uniform, flanked by Commander Park and young Anna, who floated slightly off the ground despite the station's artificial gravity. The evidence is undeniable, the council chairman announced, his crystalline form pulsing with reluctant acceptance. Humanity not only survived our abandonment, but evolved beyond our understanding. They protected the Rim from threats we never knew existed. The motion passes the Terran Rim Federation is recognized as sovereign. But Blake stepped forward before the ceremony could conclude. There's more you need to know. The air shimmered, and suddenly the chamber expanded, not physically, but perceptually. Every council member gasped as they found themselves seeing beyond their station, beyond their system, into the vast reaches of the Rim. It wasn't empty. It had never been empty. Cities of light orbited dead stars. Vessels the size of moons drifted through nebulae. Structures that defied geometry connected distant points in space. And humans, millions upon millions of them, working, living, thriving in conditions that would kill any other known species. We didn't just survive in the Rim, Blake explained. We thrived. Current population, 8 billion. The same number you left to die on Earth. The council members stared in stunned silence. The human population wasn't in the millions as they'd assumed. It matched their original numbers. They had rebuilt completely. But there's something else, Blake continued. Something we discovered in the deep rim, in places where reality wears thin. A new projection appeared, ancient structures, clearly predating any known civilization. They pulsed with the same energy the humans now wielded. The ancients didn't die, Blake revealed. They evolved beyond physical form, and they've been waiting for a species capable of joining them. They chose us, not because we were perfect, but because we survived abandonment, because we knew suffering and transcended it. Anna stepped forward, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that shouldn't exist. They teach us, show us how to grow beyond flesh while keeping our humanity. In another 1,000 years, we might not need bodies at all, but we'll still remember Earth, still remember being human. The council chairman found his voice. What do you want from us? Nothing, Blake replied simply. We're telling you this because the galaxy is changing. The Devourers were just the beginning. Things are stirring in dark space-older things, hungry things. The ancients warned us before they completed their evolution. Park took over. We'll hold the rim. We've been doing it for 3 millennia without your knowledge. But when the real darkness comes, and it will come, you'll need to decide. Stand with us or flee. There won't be a third option. You'd protect us? A council member asked. After what we did? Anna laughed, a sound like stellar wind. Protecting you is never the question. We protect the rim because that's what we do. We protect life because we remember death. But whether you deserve protection, that's for you to prove. Blake pulled up a final image Earth, not as it was, but as it is now. The dead world had been transformed into something else. Its surface gleamed with the same dark energy the humans wielded, and at its core, something massive was being built. We're turning Earth into a fortress, Blake explained. When the final war comes, it will be humanity's last stand, not just for us, but for every species willing to stand with us. The Council abandoned Earth once. The question is, will you defend it when the time comes? The chamber fell silent. Every species present understood the weight of this moment. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had become the galaxy's immune system, its guardian angels forged in the fire of abandonment. Korvax spoke first. The Galactic Council formally requests alliance with the Terran Rim Federation, not as your superiors or subordinates, but as equals. As family. Blake smiled, the first genuine warmth he'd shown. Family doesn't abandon family. Remember that, and we'll hold the line together. Anna rose into the air, her form shifting between flesh and cosmos. The rim was never empty. It was waiting. Now the wait is over. The age of hiding ends. The age of guardianship begins. Through the chamber's windows, the assembled delegates could see human ships emerging from hidden positions throughout council space, not invading, but taking position, protecting, guarding. Humanity had returned from the rim, and heaven itself would tremble before they let the darkness win. The story was complete. Humanity's abandonment had become the galaxy's salvation. Asterisk.